for messaging or emails or calls. But this particular conference is on social and behavior aspects. How do we use for social and behavior aspects? Well, a lot of exciting thing has been really discussed, and I will learn a lot how mobile is being contributing for the business model, how to collect the data, and all things are there. But when we really talk about behavior change communication, particularly social behavior change intervention as a mobile, I think it needs a different perspective, and we need also to understanding what is that we need to understand. The first thing is mobile. What is that? No. This is green. This is also gone. Yeah. This is not. Yeah, but anyway. You see that first thing is the penetration of, which is very encouraging. Penetration of mobile is much more than TV and radio, and hence it's a very powerful tool. I really underline tool to disseminate and take the messages. But messages does not translate into social behavior or behavioral change. It needs further. And there we're really coming down to the whole issue of partnerships. We talk about that 50 to 60% household in the rural area has the mobile access to. Yes, but I think it's a very skewed within the rural area. I'm not very sure about how much it has really reached to the Purva or smaller villages, and hence we need a more disintegrated data to understand how we really go about it. Access to women, which is the one of the main focus of activity, is very limited. I'm basically an operation research person, and I really look into and test different intervention, and then we see that how much this intervention is feasible, sustainable, and affordable. Now, there are two global articles has really come very recently, which looks into various pilot studies which has been carried out in the health sector or in the social sector. And at the end, it tells that at the best, most of these studies are in pilot level. Beyond that, it has not gone. It has not been scaled up. And one of the reasons it was pointed out was that scientific rigor in design was not there. Data collections to prove or disprove the hypothesis was not clear, and analysis was not there. So what is really I'm trying to tell that we want to use this mobile, which is a wonderful technology, to take information to the deepest. We need to also understand that we need more than that at the ground, and we need to really test it. Feasibility is clearly, before you expand it very, very large areas, you need to test its feasibility, sustainability, and affordability. Right now, which I feel often, that information is being pushed. How much these information which is being provided to the rural areas are need-based. And if the information reaches to them, does it translate into action or behavior change? My part of the behavior change doesn't say no, it does not translate. Even though information is there, they are aware of it, they don't do. We are struggling to tell to the mothers that don't give bath after immediate birth. Don't apply anything on the cord. Don't give the breastfeeding immediately. All these are critically important for the survival of the child. It doesn't happen automatically. It needs a partner right there itself in form of NGO, in form of research institution, and in forms of the social civil society like self-help group. And unless and until we understand what is that barriers and what are those facilitating services at that particular point, I don't think that we can really push a lot of behavioral change. I mean, the question is using the tool of mobile for behavior change. The mobile has got a lot of very good interventions and a lot of benefits is being heard in the last 2 days. But I'm focusing basically on behavior change particularly those who are embedded on social structure, is not going to change very easily. Now, what is that partnership we are looking for? I'll say that technology is very critical, and hence technology is the one leading one. It's give the mode and models to take out. Then you need to have behavioral science input to understand those things on how does it based on behavior change model which we are trying to do it. What information is really critical and they need it. So we do need to understand the information which is required. So you need a civil society, you need NGO, and you need many of them. I don't see many of these studies has really brought up all of them. Second thing is infrastructure. We are trying to push family planning to and giving a mobile to Asha and giving a messages and giving this Asha tool to use it as this simple counseling aids. But she can give all the information, and if the supply of the contraceptive is not there, the rural masses are not very easily to accept it because they have to go a couple of miles before they really procure it. So when you're really talking about the supply knowledge, you have to supply it together. And unless and until we really do that together, it's not going to happen. So either it has to be provided by NGO or provided by the government. And hence the government has to come. We are talking of this delivery in the institution. Incentive is there. Government is giving the incentive, but still 40%, 30% scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, women are not going. Why? Information is there that there is a just why. 1,400 rupees will be available. Yet not going because they need to have 1,000 rupees in their pocket before they avail those services, transportation, this, that, everything. And then they get 1,400 back. So there is no loss. It's actually there is a gain. But it doesn't happen to them because partly they don't have ready-made cash available. The situation is not there. And hence, when you're really talking about the behavioral change, it's not alone information and technology. And I'm just trying to end up there itself that we must understand one, ground reality, the local social structure, the barriers, the facilitating factors, and how does it all integrated. And this cannot be achieved without a good partnerships, and there is no one partnerships of technology. We really need a number of partners to come together, synchronize, and give it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. I think he also didn't say in so many words, which he did informally to me, is that the white paper that we are preparing should go through him. In the sense that to see what mobile has a limitation and what it cannot do, and look at the social behavioral side much more deeply in terms of putting the mobile into that one rather than that one into mobile. Anyway, so the next is, before I call Mr. Rajat, I just take excuse for 2 minutes and ask Kavita to share, because you have to leave, I know. And I also know that you didn't want to go there to speak. So can you share from here itself the mobile governance perspective? I know that Ministry of IT has created a mobile gateway, and a lot of services are being delivered through that one. Lots of ministries and the state government are getting into that one. So can you just give us a perspective so that all of us know that what is already being prepared and lying there and we may not be using it?
This mobile initiative of ours has been started in 2011, but this has a link to the NEGP. The Government of India came up with an NEGP plan over which we were giving services, electronic services to the citizen at his doorstep. But while we were doing that, it was realized that the penetration of internet was less compared to the penetration of mobile phones. So a decision was taken that let us extend NEGP to the mobile so that we can also give, while we are giving electronic services, we should also give them the mobile services, which is actually available to the citizen at his doorsteps. So with this as a background, we came up with a framework for the mobile governance. The framework talks about very simple things like each website should be mobile compliant, you need to have a single way of reaching to the citizen through a long code or a short code. And in order to have a proliferation of the applications in one state and from one state to another state, you should follow open standards. So these were the basic things which the framework was talking about. So what we thought that while we have also given the framework in order to help the departments and the states across the country to implement the mobile, let us also build a centralized infrastructure. So with this as a background, we created a mobile infrastructure. This infrastructure brings the entire telecom service providers at one end, and at the other end, we are giving the different ways of services to the citizen and a facility to the state governments and the departments at the center and state to easily come on board and avail these facilities without investing much in creating the infrastructure, because we don't want the infrastructure to be created. This infrastructure is fully owned by government. It is built on the open standards. It follows the entire guidelines and the frameworks and the open standards to that matter. So this is what we have created, and our success can be seen through our portal, which is mgov.gov.in.
.gov.in is a portal where all the applications that is developed by the CDAC under the banner of DIT is displayed there, including health areas. And just to let all of you know is that MMMP that she is talking about, which is the mission mode project of NEGP, National E-Governance Plan, has got 22 mission mode
31. Currently
31
we have
mission
31
mode project, and all of them is now extended, that all those services which were part of the mission mode project, 31 mission mode project, has to be delivered through mobile also. And the gateway provides an automated system to all the state government not to do anything but to come on the portal and create your own gateway and start using the SMS enabled services for anything, alert system, SMS system, anything that you can create possible, it can be created.
In fact, SMS is the very much heavily used system, but other than SMS, we have USSD also and we have IVRS also. Although they are at a very smaller and a lower pace, but we are replicating it at a larger pace also.
And do you remember, let's say, yesterday's transaction, total number of transactions?
No, because just while coming here, I was seeing it's 370 departments currently on board, because last month when I was just going through, early this month I was going through, there were around 200 plus departments. Now it is 350 plus departments. At that time, it was 4 crores transaction, but today it is 9.5 crores transactions. I mean, it's every 2 minutes you will see a different number.
And it's all online. You can see the track and everything, how it is being utilized by the government. And yeah, so that's a good thing, recognizing that mobile is there in the hands of the people. So they are trying to reach through the mobile as much as the possible, as much as government services are concerned. Thank you very much. And there one more, Mr. Rajshekhar, you also wanted to say about NIC, what NIC wanted to, put forth in terms of partnership.
These several good examples which were presented yesterday and today, for scaling up, we require efficiency and that to be effective. To bring in the efficiency factor from the digital perspective, in most of the areas, for example, health or education or in agriculture areas, already a lot of workflow automation systems are there in place, and NIC has created a national level database. For example, for mothers and children, we have a database, a live database. Every day, lakhs of new records are being registered. So the database is there, and also the government side, the mobile enablement, that is the gateway also is there, which connecting to all the major service players. And right now, the sending of messages to this needy population is also at free of cost. Apart from that, we have data centers all over the country, and it can store for entire life cycle of a citizen, for example, a mother, or for the children, for the entire immunization cycle. We can store the data. So data centers are there, applications are there, and also the other mobile enablement is there. So the need of the hour is, instead of duplicating a one-stop, non-stop, scalable systems. So consolidation, collaboration, standardization is need of the hour. We don't require 101 portals. If there are 32 states, it doesn't imply that we require 32 portals. If there are 600 districts, it doesn't imply that we require 600 applications. One single application, because multi-tenancy is the technology is nowadays enabling development of multi-tenant. So the slide, first day you have shown a slide of multiple users of his mobile. Different users are using it. So when we develop an application, it has to be multi-tenant, so different users can make use of it, and it will be a one single application for entire country. So technology facilitates that. So NGOs and others who have initiated the projects in various sectors we are ready to provide, because already the clientele are same. We have a farmer's database, we have a mother's database, and whatever messages you want to send, you can just add. And also the channels are also, we are already in touch with the channels, we are training them every day, we are handholding and they are feeding the data, they are already using our application. So in all those areas, we provide our support, and this is what actually I wish to say.
Thank you. One thing that I would like to share is that NIC is a service provider to the government department. I don't know whether you can sign up directly with me as an NGO if I come to you, may not. I will have to go to the Ministry of Health or department to tell them this is what we have and you can do, and they will then go to you and do. And we have tried more often than not that it ends up in nothingness. You know,
so,
it may be lying all the infrastructure. It is easy to say that we are ready to collaborate or something, but there is a line ministry which is always there. There is a line department which is always there. Unless UNICEF or the NGO do not convince the line department or ministry, NIC is just an order taker to implement it. It's just an infrastructure which is lying. And that is the reason why even in NIC, all the districts develop all the application again and again, just because the district collector wants it to be duplicated, triplicated, and do not want to use the other district collectors' project. So this is the thing that we all need to know. I'm not saying that we should not explore or should not tell them, show them the mirror that why you have not been doing and now you should do, but these are the hindrances that we have.
But one point, you are right, and what we, when we prepare the document, we also, because as a technology advisor to the line departments, we also show these are the gaps which can be filled by the line departments. And we also executed some projects, though we involving NGOs and other private players, where we are not directly signed, but we have roped in them and they have partnered with the line department.
Sure. So thank you. Now coming back to our track of NGO and civil society sharing the possibilities. Mr. Rajat Kathuria is here from ICRIER, who is one of the frontline research organization in the area, and they have in fact done in the past mobile and social behavioral issues. And let me know what you would like to share from there or here. Yeah.
Thanks, Osama. So I think we're a different kind of organizations from the ones that we've heard, so, but albeit an NGO. So I'll quickly share with you the kind of work we've been doing in this space of mobile and internet telephony. Essentially, if you remember what Anki said a little while ago, the number of Facebook users in India has multiplied 60 to 78 million and likely to be 100 million. The same sort of euphoria existed with mobiles just a few years ago. And if you look at the latest data set coming out from TRAI, actually the numbers have started going down, have started declining for multiple reasons. One could be because of saturation. Two, I think the kind of registration process has become a little more difficult, so that a number of users that existed on the database but actually didn't exist as users. So that some of that is being cleaned up. So the number of mobile users have declined. But the reason I'm saying this, the point I wish to make, is that we as a country, when we started that point of inflection in 2003 when calling party pays was introduced, I think the numbers started ramping up very, very quickly. and the impacts, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, started showing up. And I think from then to now, the policy space has become a little more confounded, a little more complex and politically charged. We've lost huge opportunities. It's not my purpose here to share with you what the opportunity loss for India has been, but we've lost huge opportunities by not getting things right in the policy space. And therefore, all these wonderful examples of entrepreneurship that we see in isolation in parts. And one of the major problems with India, we found in our research as well, was the difficulty in scaling up these operations to get the multiple impacts that you would want to see. So I think in this space, the way we participate and the way we work in this space is to show the impacts, the huge impacts that internet and mobile telephony have had across the world and have had in India, some rigorous analysis, and some of the numbers that ICRIER has shown are about 1.5 for mobile telephony, which means a 10% increase in mobile telephony gives rise to a 1.5% increase in GDP. Of course, these numbers will change depending on the subscriber base that you're looking at. For internet, the numbers can be even higher and have been shown across the world. For broadband, even higher. And if you go to our website, you'll see all the numbers, all the quantitative impacts for both internet as well as mobile. But the rest of the world, the rest of the developing world, I think has made much greater use of mobile and internet than it's not that we haven't, than we have. And why I'm talking about the rest of the developing world is because the infrastructure constraints that developing or emerging markets face are, in a sense, much higher than the infrastructure constraints that the rest of the world, the matured world, faces. So if there's a technology that allows you to overcome those constraints, whatever it could be, access to markets, and I've heard the case studies that were discussed today, and access to information, etc. And if mobile and internet can help overcome that back while the other physical infrastructure is being ramped up, is being built, then I think the impacts can and have been much higher. And India, because of the time that we've lost, I think we would have been at the position we are in today much earlier had the policy space around telecom and mobile been a little better. I'm not going to discuss what those policy challenges are, but let's leave it at that it's become increasingly vitiated in the last few years than it was in the past. That's the first point I wish to make. And we continue to work in this space, and we're happy to collaborate. One of the things that we can put on the table, and Osama and ICRIER, DEF and ICRIER have worked in the past, one of the things that we can put on the table is to collect case studies, analyze them rigorously, collect the information, and see where the impacts are, what works and what doesn't work. And we've done this, as I said, in the past, and we've done it with multiple case studies and multiple, as you say, verticals and across states. So we have a good kind of diversified sample that varies by vertical, that varies by state. So you can capture all the different ingredients that go into making a case or a pilot or any mobile intervention worthwhile with larger impact. So that's what we bring on the table, and we can do that, and we'll be happy to do that and engage with. And I think the rich source of data that each individual, whether it's an NGO, whether it's a company with a CSR, whether it's a Facebook, whether it's Google, I think they have rich, diverse set of experiences and case studies that we can collate, bring together, and perhaps bring out some rigorous learnings from those and trying to identify what works and what doesn't. And a final point I wish to make is that as the world of technology becomes more and more complex, as we get into more complex areas, convergence, tablets, handhelds, one new area of research in economics, which is emerging from the United States, is this app economy, the application economy. And I'm happy to say that ICRIER is engaging in a study on trying to determine the social, well, I guess social is too early to do, but at least the economic impacts of the app economy. There are some numbers that are out from the United States, and I think for India, given that we have such a huge talent and IT prowess, and applications have been developing very quick, what is that kind of regime, or what is that space around which it will be easier to develop applications? What is the relationship between the application provider and the service provider? How can these applications develop faster? What role open standards versus proprietary systems play in these developments? And ultimately, something which is very important to India is what sort of employment generation impact will they have? Of course, given our problems of employment, this can be only at the periphery, a dot in a vast ocean. But I think it'll still be a useful study when it comes out, what these impacts could likely to be and how they will scale up in the past. So thank you for having me here, Osama. Thank you.
Rajat is somebody whom you give all the information and he will give back to you in data. It's something like quicker.com. If nobody can be sold, sell it through Quicker. So thank you, Rajat. Can I request now the NASCOM Foundation, Rita Soni, to share that you are double-edged, because you are not only NASCOM Foundation as NGOs collaborative, but also NASCOM body also. So you can give us a very big platform for collaboration.
I like that description, Osama. Double-edged. I'll have to remember that one. No, I think it's actually pretty apt to say that. And like you were saying, ICRIR is different from all the rest of the speakers that have spoken before. I think NASCOM Foundation is as well. So I thought I would start a little bit speaking specifically to the objectives of this conversation, which was really to talk about collaboration and partnership. And the reason being really, and I'm glad this flip chart is still up here, because it gets to why it is that we care about the collaboration and partnerships. And I think the fact is that in the social sector, possibly one of the reasons that many of our challenges still exist is because we have a big challenge with collaboration and partnership, and doing it well. There are a lot of institutions that work together or say that they're partnering, and we love using that term. Especially nowadays, we'd rather use that than say that it's a funder. But I think there's still a long way to go to create some real win-win situations. And I think one of the reasons for that is that we're not necessarily going into these partnerships really thinking about the important factors in that partnership. And I'm going to say very honestly, I think at NASCOM Foundation, we're still struggling with that. We play this unique role of being a platform builder, complementing the work of NASCOM, which is a 30-year-old institution and has done tremendous work for the country and the industry. So understanding what is the USP, what is the expertise, what are the roles within those partnerships. So I thought I'd start with saying, I think the big question is, how is the development sector able to take the best from markets and the way that markets operate? How do we get to a point where the best in quality rises to the top, which is ideally what we see in markets, and scales, particularly gets invented through innovation and scales through innovation? I think we live in a very exciting time, too. I just recently heard on the radio that I happen to be one who listens to the radio. That radio happens to be in the US, but that's another story. But I heard that we've only now been able to hear an 1885 voice recording of Alexander Graham Bell, the founder of the technology, really, that we're talking about, the telephone. So I think we're at a very unique point in time, and in many ways, I think the NASCOM Foundation and a lot of the folks that are in the room, and even those that have left the room, are really important as part of that collaboration. So the couple of other points I wanted to make, I did ask the question to the industry folks that were here earlier. We as the nonprofit sector need to start seeing the CSR opportunity as not simply about money. And I think we heard that from the answer that we got from all of the companies, Qualcomm, Nokia, Facebook, and Vodafone. They're doing the philanthropy and the good activities that they're doing, for sure. But the stuff that they really got excited about, the stuff that they're seeing going to scale, they were the social businesses. They were the activities that have both a business impact and a social impact. And I think that's an important distinction. And I think particularly when we hear about the company's bill, which is still yet to be passed, but I think anyone that I've spoken to, whether they're a consultant or they're an NGO or others, anyone that's heard about this, all I see in their eyes are these little dollar signs, because that's all they can really focus on. I mean, that's what media has focused on, 2%, 2%, 2%. But really, it's grabbing that opportunity. It's grabbing that partnership. Don't make me laugh. So I wanted to start with that. And the second point I wanted to make is more specifically about the NASCOM Foundation and what role, if any, that are in the audience are thinking about collaborations. We are a platform, as I said, and that's such a vague term, but our motto, similar to DEF, is technology for good. And we're really operating in the full spectrum of what we call business responsibility and CSR. So starting all the way from philanthropy, getting software donations and hardware donations to NGOs that deserve it, all the way up to looking at social businesses and looking at where all of these collaborations can happen. So I thought I would just give one example, and I'm sorry it's not a mobile example. I would say at NASCOM and NASCOM Foundation, we heard from Ikrir that there's a whole space of the apps, and I think that's where NASCOM is looking to start playing, because I think up until just a few years ago, we really weren't doing very much in the mobile space. So I don't have any great mobile examples, but I wanted to share one very interesting non-mobile example, and that's a phenomenon that we're working in called impact sourcing. In India, it's primarily looking at rural BPOs, so let's use that example of rural BPOs. And it's been an interesting place that we've partnered with Rockefeller Foundation. It's been a global partnership, so there's a lot of different entities that are looking at this globally, particularly with a focus on Africa. So we start with the funders as partners, the knowledge sharers, the folks that are connecting us across borders, in particular in this case. Then we move up to the social entrepreneurs that are out there that are looking to start businesses, oftentimes in the communities that they came from, or picking a community because there's great education that's happening on the ground. But the actual social entrepreneurs, the ones who understand the BPO or BPM business, the ones that know how to get clients, the ones who know how to market this business. Then we've also seen on the ground the need for legitimacy. So that's where the nonprofits start coming into play. Local NGOs introducing those businesses to local institutions, whether they're in the schools or they're the panchayat or whomever, really going hand in hand, going to the community with that company to really give that company some legitimacy so that they can look at expanding that business and impacting that community. And second to last, local government. Obviously, to run a business in any of these locations, dealing with connectivity issues, both digital and power, dealing with all kinds of issues, local government and the contacts within local government, including panchayat, is extremely important, and those relationships getting built in that partnership. And finally, mainstream businesses. Mainstream businesses looking at carving out a portion of their business and giving it to a small rural BPM player and saying that, okay, part of this is part of my social responsibility. I see that it has an impact on community. But the other part is that there's practically zero attrition in that group. There's high quality that's coming from that group. They figured out the security issues. They figured out their connectivity issues. This is good business. So I just wanted to end with that example to say I think there are amazing examples, and I think you've heard them over the last 2 days of collaboration and partnership. But I think the key, and the reason I mentioned this one example, was each of these players took on their special role. One last thing, sorry. The mainstream BPMs, they're actually going an extra mile. And they're saying, you know, one of the challenges that these very spread out institutions have is middle management training. So let us, and we have extra capacity in our training institutions, let us bring the mid-managers to our offices, let us do some of the training, help them grow. They may not be doing business with them yet, but eventually they likely will be. Let them grow and then come and be a partner in business. And so I think that's where I see the potential and the huge opportunities. Thank you.
I think one of the things that, beside having the positive intention from everybody to have a partnership, is to fine-tune that on what basis and how fast and how quickly. Because of course everybody sees a partnership is possibility. We have in fact Internet and Mobile Association of India willingness to have, so from that point of view we have 2-3 association kind of organization here who are willing to partner with us. We certainly see NASCOM more from the traditional perspective, coming in more from a software business, and therefore mobile application makes a lot of interesting input. Priyanka Dutt from BBC Media Trust, she made a wonderful presentation this morning. We would like to hear from you from the partnership perspective, both media and international media perspective, and being an NGO also,
Thanks, Osama. I'm really happy that Ritu, there you are. Rita, sorry. I'm really glad you went before me because you've set the context for what I'm going to say beautifully. I'm actually going to talk about so this morning, for those of you who weren't in the room, I presented some of the mHealth work that we're doing in Bihar as BBC Media Action. BBC Media Action is the international NGO arm of the BBC, and we use the media and communications for development. Our work in Bihar, or our mobile work in Bihar, is based on a business model that we spent the first part of this project building. The business model means that we work with 6 of the leading mobile network operators in the country. We work with Airtel, Vodafone, Reliance, Idea, Tata, and BSNL. And between them, we cover 90% of the market pretty much anywhere in the country. Now, what does it take to build a business model, and what does that business model entail? So what are the components of it? We have a standard agreement with all of them that says that we have a standard tariff across all 6 mobile network operators. They charge us a standard 50 paise per minute for all of our services. Now remember that we're talking about value-added services. We're talking about VAS services, the standard tariff of which in India is 6 rupees a minute. So the mobile network industry has actually given us a 90% subsidy on those call rates. The second part of the call tariff business model is a revenue share. And for those of you who are familiar with the way the mobile network industry works, there are 3 critical partners or 3 critical players in that entire environment. There's the mobile network operator, there's the content provider, and there's the aggregator who sits in between. Now, I'm not a technology person and I'm not from the industry, so I have a very layperson understanding of this. But essentially what the mobile network operator does is that they share part of the revenue that's generated from those calls made to the services that we've launched back with the aggregator and the content provider. Over the long run of 5 years, what that means is that the services are sustainable. They start generating their own revenue and they start looking after costs of running the services themselves. It takes away the need eventually for external funding. The next component of the business model is a common short code. 57711 is our common short code across all 6 mobile network operators in Bihar. Let me give you a perspective on what that means. For those of you who are familiar with Kaun Banega Crorepati, our equivalent of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, at the end of the show, you'll get a series of mobile short codes. If you're an Idea subscriber, dial X. If you're a Vodafone subscriber, dial Y. In Bihar, if you're accessing any of our mobile services, you dial 57711. It doesn't matter whether you're an Airtel, Vodafone, Idea, etc. Now, managing to get 6 competitors, essentially, to agree to a single set of tariffs, revenue shares, short codes, working with the same partner, how does it work? How do you get there? What does it take? It's not simple, it's not easy. It takes a lot of hard work, and we're lucky to have somebody on our team who led this from the front, really. But what it took really, and I think this sounds very simple when I'm going to say it, but it really takes a better understanding of all the partners in the game. What does that better understanding mean? So development sector, all of us in the room, or a lot of us in the room, we really need to understand when we're working with mobile network operators that their costs need to be covered for services to be financially viable. It's not going to be sustainable if mobile network operators' costs are not covered. Mobile network operators run a brand at the end of the day. They need to have products and services that actually match that brand and that match a certain quality standard, so that there is no risk to that brand. This is something that's important to people who have any large brands. When we're working with base of the pyramid consumers, as we are in Bihar, profit margins are never, ever going to be large. So the only way to make things sustainable in the long run is to address scale right from the beginning. Numbers are what's going to give you profits, nothing else will. And of course, mobile network operators and the entire industry are governed by a very strict set of legislation and rules, and you can't expect that they're going to deviate from that because it's development work. At the same time, though, mobile network operators also need to understand how things work at the other end of the table. So you can't have a single pricing model that will work for everybody. Base of the pyramid consumers need a separate pricing model. You can't use what you would use with urban consumers. You can't use the same content that you use for urban markets or for any market. You have to tailor localized, relevant content. There are risks and there are profits in this entire game, and you cannot expect that the development sector will bear both the risks and not get any share of the profits. They have to be shared equally. They have to be shared equitably. And at the end of the day, the development sector are people like us. We're NGOs. We can't really accept the kind of liability that a multinational corporation can accept. So we really need to be able to work with new parameters and new understanding of how things work for the development sector. There are 2 other players in this entire system. There's funders, donors, people who provide seed money for a lot of these innovations. Donors need to understand that this takes significant and patient investment. You cannot do this overnight. Small pots of money for short periods of time are not going to show you results. All that will result in is pilot after pilot after pilot. It will not allow you to build scale. It will not allow you to build sustainability. And finally, of course, there's the government. And government, at the same time, needs to understand that commercial business models require scale, but they require commercial business models as well. It's very difficult, very often, working with government because they have their own set of rules, and you've got to work within those. But there needs to be some understanding of what give and take is possible. There are other things like taxation. That 50% revenue share, that 50% tariff that I talked about, and the revenue share that I talked about, a huge 39% of it goes back to the government in taxes. A huge amount. For base of the pyramid services, the government does need to think about what it's taking back in terms of taxation, and how does that actually feed into what is making sustainable. And finally, customers must be protected first and foremost. The people who are using the services must be protected. But we must also understand that each customer or each section of our customers is different. So when you're talking about an illiterate woman in rural Bihar, there is absolutely no way that she is going to be able to press 6 different buttons in sequence to be able to verify that she wants to subscribe to a VAS service. She's not going to be able to send in a postcard. And these are, for those of you who are familiar with it, these are a lot of the TRI regulations around subscribing to VAS services. So we really need to understand each other. We need to understand each other's possibilities and each other's limitations in order to build something that will work and that will work in the long run. Thank you.
Thanks, Priyanka, for alerting various issues in terms of commercial challenges or sustainable challenges. We have Arjun, who is a mobile-based media organization, and he says that he has only 3 slides.
Yes, that's the slide by itself. Let me try and get this hooked up. I'm sorry, I'm on a Linux computer. This might be a little bit painful. Is that on? Yes, I think so. Full of organizations. The one is called the Mojo Lab Foundation. We are an alternative technology organization. We work with cheap and simple, easy to deploy hacks that we put into communities, which they can use to then do things with. And it's not limited to communication, but communication is our primary focus. A couple of other organizations I work with, one is called CGNet Swara. It's not really an organization, it's a project that has gotten a lot of good traction, and I'll be sharing that as a case study. I'm so sorry about that. That's my wallpaper. There you go, much better. So, yeah. Okay, I'll try and rush through this. So if this gets dense, just reach me after this thing is done. These are 2 curves that are fairly popular in the technology adoption analysis space. One is the Gartner's hype cycle curve. That's the first one. It describes the behavior of markets towards new technology and new innovation. There's always a technology trigger, something that triggers it. It reaches a peak of inflated expectations. Sounds familiar? And then it drops down to the trough of disillusionment, where you see a drop in the consumption of it. And eventually it rises back up through best practices and so forth and hits the plateau of productivity. I think this is a curve that we are starting to see with mobile adoption. I mean, we're at the point where we're at the top of that curve, where the numbers are starting to decline. The next one over there is the chasm. People who've sold software at any point in time are familiar with this diagram. It's a book that came out called Crossing the Chasm. It's very popular with technology marketers. It describes how markets pick up, again, products. And what it shows you is that initially there's a set of innovators who will pick it up. Then you have the early adopters. But once the early adopters start picking it up, usually there's a chasm before they all pick it up and start recommending it to the majority, and then the laggards and the late majority and so forth. Just 2 things to keep at the back of your mind. What usually happens in interventions is this: the channel that you're using, its trough of disillusionment sort of coincides with the point where you're just getting past your pilot and people don't want to use it anymore because the technology is dropped. And it happens with almost every technology-based social intervention that I've worked on. Case in point is, you start with the technology vendor telling you all the things that are possible with it. You start getting really big dreams. I mean, at the point where we start expecting a mobile phone scanner to quality test medicine, I think we're already at the peak of inflated expectations. So beyond that, we just drop down into the trough. The bad news is already here. Subscriber bases are dropping. ARPUs are 60 rupees down from 2010. It used to be 132 in 2010, as I recall. It's now 98 and 80. And if you see that curve, the top of that curve looks very similar to the top of that curve over there, the first one. So what this is leading to is that what I'm kind of bringing up is that this needs to be in the back of everybody's mind while you're pushing out your interventions. If you can keep this at the back of your mind, there are things that you can do to make it work. And some of those things are what we did with CGNet Swara. Now, CGNet Swara is essentially a mobile phone-based community content sharing network. So people call in to a phone number, or they give it a missed call. It calls them back, and then they record a 3-minute piece of content that is then moderated by the community and released onto the internet, at which point people can start to take action. So people like you and me can listen to that message online and take some action about it. I'll just give you an example. This is the website where we publish all the messages. If you see, the content is fairly diverse. you could have anything from somebody celebrating their marriage to people talking about land rights issues, power plants, wrong arrests, all sorts of things. And these are all in local languages. I mean, I would play a Gondi song for you, but I don't think anybody here speaks Gondi, so it would be pointless. I'm sorry, I'm rushing a little bit, but I have a lot of things to say and not too much time to say it in. These are some of the numbers we've seen. If you see, it's a consistent uprise. These are the calls by Telecom Circle since Jan 2012. If you see, we've kind of 3x'd it. In Madhya Pradesh alone, then the new circles are just catching on. These are the circles that started up in 2012, in June, after June. These are the number of posts, very similar to the number of calls, but you'll see some variations here. Also, the big thing you'll see is the change in the order of magnitude. When you get 4,500 calls, out of that, roughly 280 are reports or recordings, out of which maybe 60 are actual reports that can be published, which will result in this kind of impact. So there's a lot of filtering that happens. With 4,500 calls a month, you get maybe 1 or 2 impact stories a month, but that will impact at least a few hundred people. That's just a comparison of all 4 of those. That's the daily call volume. If you see, it's gone up from somewhere around 100 in Jan 2012, and it's up to the 500, 600 mark at this point. Where does this happen? I've tried to make a little map. This is the Indian Railways network. So where you see, if you see up here in the UP and the Gujarat areas, it's really dense, which gives me an indicator that those areas are much more developed than other areas. This is where we held our initial trainings. These are the few spots where we had our initial few trainings. These are where our participants came from. And this is where we've had impact stories. So it's all in the area where the rail network starts to get sparse. This is just a recap of the quick numbers. So this is all to sort of establish that we know how to scale. And what's key is that 90% of our traffic at this point comes from people who we've never met. We've never trained, we've never interacted with. So I would say that's pretty viral. At 600 calls a day, and I just got news that we've got at this point 7 lines always engaged and 14 people waiting in queue. So if we had to support all the people who are calling us today, we would have to have 21 parallel lines. And now we're trying to distribute that out. This is where I come to the crux of the presentation. I think what is this made possible by? We've covered all of this during the last 2 days. The key thing is people, it's not tech. Technology is not what drives this kind of uptake. We are doing this because we are able to communicate with people on the ground. The tech will, just putting a mobile phone into something is not going to solve it. And that's where we are taking that peak of inflated expectations and bringing it down a little bit so that the drop to the trough is not as painful as it should be. The next thing is that we've worked with people who really, really understand local issues. Most of the people who are involved in the content moderation process are people who've been working on grassroots issues for over 5 or 10 years. And they really, really know their networks, they know their people well, and when they get the power to start bringing those voices out, it sort of really works. That's when people who trust these guys will call in and report because it's being moderated by somebody they know. Intensive community-owned moderation using commodity tools. We don't develop new software as far as possible. We don't like writing new code. There's a lot of open source code out there. We use it, we modify it, we contribute back to it, but we try not to write new code. And we use Gmail as a content management system. All our content is exported onto Gmail. Gmail is something everybody knows how to use. So we have very little trouble training people how to get onto a content management system because they're essentially opening an email, reviewing an attachment, possibly modifying it, and then sending it back onto the same conversation. So my entire track of how the report was treated is in one Gmail conversation, which makes it very, very easy to track later on. And then finally, there's the offline follow-up component, which means that every single story that is actionable has to be followed up by a human person. That's where the mobile comes in handy because they are still using mobile phones to call, but this time it's a human-to-human interaction. It's all volunteer-based, but that's what really takes a lot of patience to set up. So I think those would be my high points of what we need to have to scale things up. In terms of collaboration, I think what we need is somebody who is trusted by all stakeholders, which is a rare thing to find, to say that they will be accountable for that collaboration's success. And I think that's, until we get to that point or that body to exist, collaboration is that much more difficult because everybody is dealing with that fear that, is collaborating going to dilute my value proposition? I mean, it's almost like the corporate world's paranoia has now infested us, and we're dealing with that now. So I would say the first thing that we need to remember is that we're working on social projects. The point is not to make money, the point is really to help people out. And if we can keep that at the back of our mind, I think we'll be able to collaborate just fine. Cheers.
Thanks, Arjun. I didn't know your 3 slides were so long. Yeah, so thank you very much. We have last 2 interventions that we have to hear. One is from UNESCO, Alisher Umrav, Program Specialist in Education. Thank you for your patience for waiting for so long. And then just Rajan.
Speak on the second day of conference, last session, evening Friday. I should tell you, we also do the same type of conferences, but we usually have reward for survivors who survive for the last session. And it's very difficult because in UNESCO we mostly work with ministerial level people, and our office looks after 6 countries. So when we get people from other countries coming to New Delhi, keeping them Friday evening out of shopping, it's really big art. Okay? This one is. I was not aware that we need to make only 2 slides.
Yes, ma'am.
That's why I did a little bit longer. But I promise I will speak about only 2 slides out of those. Okay? What is the issue? First of all, my sincere congratulations to UNICEF and DEF for very good initiatives and for very fruitful outcome. I think first time we ever have this kind of very good mutual supportive understanding from the corporate world, from NGOs, from grassroots level people, from central level people, etc. I was so, emotionally become inspired after yesterday's session evening. I went to MHRD and I talked to a couple of people like additional secretary, etc. And people start believing, saying something happening there. That's why you see here we have 3 representatives from MHRD and on specific topic. And specific topic because there is a large, one of the flagship programs to support achieving the school education, that is a midday meal scheme. And the new version of this midday meal scheme actually running in all states, in all schools, everywhere. But the issue of quality of this scheme running and also the reports monitoring, it's one of the, big concerns of the top management at MHRD. So we have here, I think out of 3, 2 survive. Thank you very much for that. People from midday meal scheme. That's why those of you who really wanted to work with them, please contact them and continue working. Because not all the time we have Friday evening government officials in our meeting, yeah? I'm pointing these 2 people. Could you please stand up and people can see you? Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not going to do for everyone because I know everyone also friend of UNESCO. Let's speak about what actually UNESCO is about in mobile learning. I told you our clients are mostly the people on the policy level. That's why we work to promote how to use this mobile learning to achieve education for all goals. We have heard about the 6 goals. We know that 6 goals embedded into the 12th 5-year plan, and we know everybody is working on it. But at the same time, we know not every child in school and not every child who is in school getting quality education. And we know there is a lot of very nice teachers I met through one year of my being here in many states in Delhi. Very energetic, very dynamic young people who knows how to use mobile technologies. They're doing the same time chatting, etc., etc. But when they go to the classroom, they put this mobile deep into the pocket and go and do talk and chalk business, like pre-digital era. Nothing changed. And that is always amazing me. That's why I saw those cases, but at the same time, I saw here during the two days, there is a lot of already going on. There is a lot of solutions. There is a lot of already people changing this attitude and doing the better way. What about mobile learning education? I have to warn you, year 2000, when we start emerging and asking all governments to look about education for all, we've been thinking the right way, saying let's get everybody their part of education, what they deserve. But nowadays, the paradigm shift happened. People start understanding a little bit differently than what we wanted. We wanted everybody to have education, but everybody start understanding everybody should have school. And education should happen only in the infrastructure, inside the infrastructure. It should be school provision, classroom, teachers there, etc., etc. And we start forgetting actually learning happens everywhere. That's why nowadays we are start shifting from the education for all, understanding schooling for all, to the learning for all. That's why we are talking about now not mobile education. If you saw in the 5-6 years ago, UNESCO had some publications. Now we are talking about learning, mobile learning. What is about this mobile learning? It's similar picture. Like everybody is touching different parts. Corporates, they say, look guys, you have everything ready. There is a lot of mobile applications. It's open. We're giving you, like my previous speaker said, a lot of subsidies. Please take it, use it. And there is producers of the mobile phones. They're saying there is no more new gadgets. And those new gadgets, they have everything. Almost you should do nothing but have it. Okay? At the same time, we have the school teachers and school principals. And I know several schools which I visited where school principals or even vice chancellor, they prohibit to use mobile phones within the territory of the institution or educational entity. We know what is actually the major point. Most of the time, educators say about mobile learning, it is actually not accessible. You cannot switch and you cannot take everybody to work on it. And it says about affordability and how much, if we will be stick to the mobile learning, how much we can have autonomy and many other points. We know all this fear actually covered with the fear of having low quality if we start moving from the, say, face-to-face learning to mobile learning. Another one is we always saying about how many now mobile users here. I see in this report, very nice report, very well done. Where is Osama? Oh, Osama, he is missing when I'm going to praise him. They said 800 million subscribers in India, but actually it's a little bit wrong. It is only Indian mobile operator subscribers. You have to understand there is many people who has subscription not from Indian mobile operators. They have subscription from other countries, example me. Or you go to Bangalore, most of them they're using the mobile operators based in US because they give them much more discount for the roaming, etc. That's why the number is actually, I think 1 billion, about 1 billion. That's why the scale and inclusiveness there is a huge area. And I know whenever you talk to anybody about mobile learning, they're always looking to you with big hope. On that point, I have to say in education, actually, mobile learning helps us to look for the issue of inclusiveness. That's what I want you to propose to base all your, say, presentation to our partners. You see, one professor says, I will give you, from the equality point of view, the same task, please do it. And the task is here. Okay, it's very clear. Correct? But the point is, when you have mobile phones, you don't have that disparity. It removes. Because I have always, every day, struggling in the morning with my 2-year-old daughter to get my BlackBerry taken to the office. Because she uses it better than I do it. Okay, let me just pass over those things. This year, actually, is a tremendous year when the world will celebrate the fact when mobile phone subscribers number will be more than the population of the world. Okay? This year, one of the dates, it's going to happen. And there is a prediction it's going to happen by 18th of October. I don't know what is the reason for that, but they did. That's why we are looking for the issues of mobile technologies, how it can be used in education. And for that, we have to look for the three areas. One is the policymakers, another one, educators themselves, and third, learners. In this regard, we have now developed UNESCO policy guidelines for mobile learning. This is actually a result of the 2 years' work of in many countries. We used many experts, and what we found actually, for getting mobile learning into school, we have to agree with MHRD. Yep. You've been absent. That's why you cannot tell me about the time, Osama. And I'm just putting the link to those policy guidelines when you can see what actually we developed. Besides that, we try to get the best examples, illustrative initiatives, and policy implications. And it's done not only for the policymakers, but also is with the recommendation, what are the key issues to consider, how to get these mobile technologies inside the education. As I told you, for getting it, we should not only talk to policymakers, we also have to talk to the teachers. That's why we have another set of documentation, which is available on UNESCO website, saying exploring the potential of mobile technologies to support teachers and improve their practice. Because in this area, we are actually trying to look not only at the broader issues, but also specific the regional issues. Example, I put you one excerpt from Asia. And these policy considerations actually came out with certain recommendations. As example, I am giving you these 8 recommendations, which says what are the barriers to take teachers to mobile technologies, and what are the barriers for mobile technologies to reach the teachers. Every year now, UNESCO is organizing Global Mobile Learning Week, which happens usually 3rd week of February. That's why this week we have been discussing how to address the issues of the AFL global goals through using of mobile technologies. Simple example, we just had successful, final for the first phase of the big project on mobile literacies in Pakistan, in Punjab, and that actually giving us very much hope this kind of successful examples can be taken into Indian states as well. Why I'm telling about India? You have to understand, in India, by different statistics, we have between 3 to 24 million out-of-school children. And those children actually, they've been required to come to school, but they cannot come to school for many reasons. And what are the opportunities for them to learn? And there is only few opportunities. Example, NEO is providing open distance learning, and there is a program for those who is above 15, and some NGOs are doing, and the government doing some kind of schemes. But actually it doesn't work. Another point is mobile learning actually is very efficient to increase the quality of education. You know this picture when 5th graders, they cannot read the textbook for grade number 2. And this actually quality is still declining. Here I want to stop because Osama is not only giving chances to say anything more. I just wanted to say, please go to our UNESCO website and you can see all these documents what I mentioned. Then I think at the end, you will produce some kind of documentation list of participants where we can have everybody's contact numbers and contact details, where we can start communicating to each other and talk about cooperation. My understanding of cooperation, we better tell what we are doing, then we can find the commonalities where we can do something in future together. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you so much. Can we all come together here, especially Rajan and Amitabh, because you both wanted to discuss from more as in the discussion rather than from there. Maybe we can start the discussion with both of you. Now that we have the agenda which is in front of us, which is more or less we have heard the industry, we have heard the private sector industry, we have heard the government also, we heard NGOs, and we also heard international agencies and international NGOs. I would say, if I'm allowed to say BBC as international NGO, although it is NGO. So